I'm never going to be able to finish this video. I've been recording it for like 30 minutes, and every time something or someone walks by, don't show you're behind. There we go. Okay. Hey, welcome to House of History. Imagine that you're in the middle of the Second World War and a prisoner of war is brought to you. You know he has knowledge of an imminent bombing raid, and your superiors task you with the interrogation and making sure that the prisoner spills the beans. How do you ensure the prisoner gives up the most amount of information? Do you torture them and rile the pressure up to inhumane levels in order to force someone to tell you everything he knows, even if he doesn't know it? I mean, you're in the middle of a war after all. So, according to the United States Army Manual, you remain businesslike, ask direct questions, and supplement those with open ended questions and fact checking. But according to two academic articles I happened to come across, there's a technique that works even better. It's called the Scharff-technique. This technique basically means you, as the interrogator, empathize and put yourself in the position of your prisoner, who is your source of information. You remain friendly, you don't force any questions or confessions, and create the illusion that you already know more or less everything the prisoner knows. This so-called Scharff technique thanks its name to Nazi Germany's master interrogator, Hanns Joachim Scharff. During the war, he worked as an interrogator for the Luftwaffe's intelligence and evaluation center. Because Scharff was fluent in English, he interrogated Allied pilots that had crashed and were captured alive. He interrogated well over 500 captured pilots throughout the war. Even though Scharff was on the wrong side of history, you could say, even today the intelligence community considers him an iconic role model for interrogators. So what made him so special? Well, a captured United States Air Force fighter pilot later reminisced about his interrogation, and his account tells us a lot about Scharff's methods. In October 1944, Hubert Zemke was shot down over Germany and parachuted out of his aircraft. After several days of being on the run, he was captured and sent to Scharff for interrogation. Scharff made friendly conversation with him and wasn't too interested in military intelligence. During a stroll through the woods, Scharff mistakenly mentioned that a chemical shortage was responsible for tracer bullets from American planes leaving white rather than red smoke. Zemke corrected him. There was no chemical shortage. The change in color was to signal an aircraft was running out of ammunition. Scharff didn't bat an eye, and the conversation continued. Zemke survived the war, and only when he returned to the United States he relayed his capture and interrogation to U.S. Army personnel. He realized what had happened. When asked what Scharff got out of him, he said, "What did he get out of me? There is no doubt in my mind that he did extract something, but I haven't the slightest idea what." And he wasn't the only one. One former prisoner said that Scharff could get a confession of infidelity from a nun. Scharff's unparalleled success came from the core belief that interrogating prisoners of war benefited from a friendly approach instead of torture. Basically, prisoners were unwilling to give up any information that the interrogator didn't know. Still, they would think it useless to deny or withhold information that the interrogator pretended to know. It's why Scharff always pretended to know more than he actually did during interrogations. He would provide a carefully crafted statement about a situation to which the prisoner would most likely reply yes or no, slowly coaxing the interrogator into the right direction and providing more information, even though the prisoner would just think he confirmed what the interrogator already knew. Now, one of the most ironic things about Scharff being the most successful interrogator in Nazi Germany is that he was not just never meant to be an interrogator, but he was never meant to join the German Luftwaffe at all. During the decade preceding the Second World War, Scharff worked for the Adler automobile manufacturer in Johannesburg, South Africa. There he met his British wife, with whom he had 2 children. Due to his work in South Africa, Scharff quickly became fluent in English and was promoted to director overseas. Fate had it that Scharff and his family were vacationing in Germany as the Second World War broke out. Because of hostilities, he was unable to leave Germany and was eventually drafted into the Wehrmacht. His unit was destined to be sent to the Eastern Front to invade the Soviet Union. But because of his fluency in English and the general awareness that the Eastern Front was a literal meat grinder, Scharff's wife managed to talk herself into a general's office and convince him to use her husband's qualities as an interpreter. During the initial stages of the war, Scharff became an assistant interrogator and saw the appalling treatment of prisoners of war during interrogation sessions. He vowed to do things differently if he was ever in a position of influence. Thanks to a string of coincidences and an airplane crash with two of his superiors, over time Scharff actually became in charge of the Luftwaffe's interrogation department, tasked with extracting information from captured Allied pilots. Throughout the war, he was tasked with not just interrogating fighter pilots, but also assisting other Luftwaffe interrogators with their interrogation, if the captured pilot did not want to give up any information. Furthermore, other departments of the Nazi military apparatus, such as the Wehrmacht, made ample use of him interrogating captured officers and spies. One of the most famous prisoners was Lieutenant Colonel Francis Gabi Gabreski, the US top fighter ace during the Second World War. He was notorious in Nazi Germany, and when he crashed his aircraft in German territory, he was subsequently arrested and brought to Scharff. Although Scharff said Gabreski was one of the few men he didn't manage to extract new information out of, the two men remained friends until Scharff's death, nearly 50 years later. Most articles and historiography about Scharff put the emphasis on his charismatic personality and cultivated people skills. Only recently there has been an interest in explaining the actual effectiveness of Scharff's tactics and the mythology behind it. A 2016 study published in the International Journal of Intelligence and Counterintelligence, researchers set up an experiment with several participants in order to test the effectiveness of the Scharff-technique against the so-called direct approach, the business-like way of interrogating by the US Army. Now, one of the findings was that the Scharff-technique managed to elicit more information than the direct approach, and that this information was more valuable and specific. But what's even more interesting to find is that people interrogated by the Scharff-technique tended to underestimate how much information they revealed. In contrast, the people questioned using the direct approach overestimated how much information they revealed. And these findings correspond with the saying of Zemke, who said he had no idea how much information he divulged because he simply never had the idea or feeling that he was being interrogated. And, well, that basically sums up the effectiveness of Scharff's technique. Pilots he interrogated simply didn't realize they were giving up information the Nazis did not yet know. They never had a feeling they were being interrogated, and Scharff didn't have to torture a single soul for it. And as for Scharff after the war, well, his wife left him, but he remarried an American woman. He actually emigrated to the United States and contributed significantly to the United States post-war interrogation techniques. In 1948, he gave lectures to the US Air Force personnel, and Scharff's first-hand experience accounts became part of the core curriculum. But Scharff didn't stick to lecturing about interrogation. He became a mosaic artist, and a pretty successful one at that. In another funny course of history, one of his works hangs on the wall in the Magic Kingdom Castle at Disney World. It is the Cinderella Castle mosaic mural, and after this entire story about Scharff interrogating over 500 captured Allied pilots, perhaps this is the most bewildering fact of the whole story. Nazi Germany's master interrogator became a mosaic artist, with his art still exposed in Disneyland. But his work also hangs in the California State Capitol building, Los Angeles Hall, and many other public buildings in the United States. He passed away in 1992 at the age of 85, having had quite an incredible life. In order to get them to force and give up everything, you just use adorable animals and blackmail them through that. Thank you for watching this video. I would also like to thank all my patrons for their generous support. If you enjoy House of History and want to support my work, consider checking me out on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you will gain access to the exclusive monthly Patreon series. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time.